Thank you for your introduction. Thank you and welcome everybody this morning here in Vienna to the DeepSec. The topic of my talk, why companies must control their data in the era of IoT and how to, or not just control their data, but you will find out later, also control their destiny. If you don't control your data, you are no longer in control of your destiny, is very much what is happening on a daily basis with private users, with consumers, but even more so with companies that have to pay salary by the end of a month, and the salary payment hinges upon being in control of the business. Being in control of the business includes being in control of the data. My company, Regify, has been working in this era now for 10 years. We started as pioneers in data security, data privacy, that is concerned with enterprises. So how do enterprises work with data? What happens if they do not control the data? And what we have seen over and over again is the dilemma between controlling each and everything. You know it from the consumer side of enterprises, bring your own device. The dilemma of being in control of the data and at the same time having global reach. Both requirements or wishes contradict themselves. If you want to have global reach, you have to open a gate or two, and two gates may already be one too many, and that contradicts your wish to be in tight control with regards to data and data security. Now, what I have for you, I will just show you as a brief outline. I would like to present to you the commercial drivers behind IoT. We know all the wonderful drivers that we see each and every day when a signal and sensor pops up, but what are the real commercial drivers behind IoT? I have identified three. We are going to talk about them. The commercial value of being connected in real numbers, so how much is at stake? Then the risks associated with IoT, or the risks of losing control over one's own destiny, i.e. data. Then how do EU data standards apply to this whole scenario? And as this is an international conference, it's not just EU data standards. You see the same evolution on data privacy and data security elsewhere. You see it in Singapore. We have customers in Singapore that have to cater to Singaporean data privacy regulation. And you see regulation elsewhere. Regulation is heterogeneous, but there is a common pitch to regulation these days. Then I would like to come to the how-to, remaining in control of your data. How, as an organization, can you control data while at the same time having this global accessibility, local controls and global reach, and last but not least a summary statement on data-focused industrial enterprise. I would like to invite you to jump in. If you have a question, if you have a remark, go ahead, and we will try to make it as lively a talk and a demonstration, not a phase two, but a lively conversation amongst ourselves as possible. So what are the commercial drivers? It's the customer relationship, of course. Customer relationship has always been important, and you may remember what Coca-Cola said about stomach share. Coca-Cola or Pepsi or other consumer type of companies, they want to own a piece of our stomach because once they own it, they have a lifetime relationship with us, and this is customer relationship when it comes to eating and drinking, but customer relationship across the board requires to be close to the customer. And what I have here is a chart on an old chart on total contact ownership. So this is the help desk scenario where you try to really greet and meet your customer each and every time he has an issue, or more importantly, also in times where he may have an issue and you proactively approach the customer. IoT gets you closer as an organization. This is the promise, because if you are in the Fitbit industry, you can even have the pulse of your customer on a 24/7. If you are Facebook, then you know that you got up at 2:30 in the morning to just reply to a message that you received at 1:45. And that means you suddenly have the opportunity of a 24/7 relationship, and to have it any place, because we have our mobile sensors and signals or smartphones always with us, and it's any digital channel and increasingly any device, as we found in a discussion over break. Even the LEDs that we have just up here, they have a very tiny operating system, but that operating system allows you to do certain things that can be done on the positive customer facing and customer value generating side, but of course also have their risks. So it's a customer relationship, but not just that. If you produce a good which is complex, let it be a machine, let it be something that requires more than one company to work on this creation, on the maintenance, on the delivery of the product and services, then you talk about the value network. This is a number of companies that work together to create something that the customer is willing to pay for. And this value network has found that it is increasingly interesting to put sensors and signals into machines, into processes, to know exactly what happens and to have it in a ubiquitous way, such that you have the context for this very bottleneck glitch issue right away at your fingertips, and to also be in a position to predict what might happen tomorrow. It's predictive maintenance is quite a popular topic when it comes to IoT in industry or Industry 4.0, where you put IoT into this process perspective and value creation perspective. And last but not least, what our core desire is to have our individual thing, to have the individual iPhone, to have the individual everything. And we have seen the abilities to personalize these devices that we get just over the shelf, and then it takes only a little while and we have personalized our device. We have personalized our 1 billion identical device to Kurt's device just by putting settings and having behavioral preferences put such that it's my device and nobody else's. And that granular lot size number one means if you have that sort of friend in the pocket of your customer, then quite likely you as a company, you can continue to sell again and again into this customer relationship. So that is the value network. The third commercial driver that I have for you is data is an asset. We all know that I give you an idea about Google's last quarter. You know the size of revenues and the size of profits. Google made a 5 billion net profit in the last quarter, just by monetizing the wonderful data that all of us put into Google all the time. Free of charge, of course. We are looking for something, Google tells us what it might be, we click on it, and Google gets a reconfirmation that obviously that was the right answer, and they prioritize it up. So it's the sort of deal, we get something, they get something. Their something is worth 5 billion net profit per quarter, and there are the first companies, it's not the first companies, I just copied and pasted this this morning out of the internet. Data Coup is one of these companies, and there are hundreds that say, okay, if you, Kurt, and whoever is in the room, you are giving away your data, why don't you sell it? Not in this sort of cozy deal with Google, where Google gives you something and you say, okay, it's okay. You give a tip each and every time Google gets a response from you, but you sell it. Instead of just giving a tip to Google, why don't you sell it and collect €3.50, and that is then the question to you. Will you sell your data if the deal is right? I believe we already do, but we have never been given a deal. It's the sort of relationship we have with the likes of Facebook, of Google. But there will be a data economy that allows you to package data that you have and to sell it to a third party, and to give this third party, for example, the deal that they can anonymize some of your data, take the name out, but leave the postal code there, and sell it to an insurance company, or to a healthcare company, or to Vodafone, or to Telekom Austria, whoever. And that sort of deal is just about emerging, and data has become an asset, a business in its own right, and the sale of data has gone further down to the individual consumer. Now, there are enough commercial IoT drivers to make IoT a very, very interesting business for the economy as a whole, and I have two sources for you, and that is the figures, the numbers that IDC projects, and this is just sale of IoT equipment. It's supposed to reach 1.7 trillion US American trillions, but still a lot of money by 2020. And that is the sale of IoT type of equipment that is being generated through the 9.7 billion of endpoints in 2014, which are going to triple, more or less triple in 2019 to 25 billion and 30 billion in 2020. So this is just equipment sold, services sold, databases sold, IT stuff, if you so want. So now the economic impact out of it, so the benefit derived from IoT was measured by McKinsey, and they say it's going to hit 3.9 trillion by 2025. So these are enormous numbers. So if you look at IoT as a singular technology, then it's by far the world's biggest tech deal ever so far. And if you are confronted with these figures, then there is usually silence in the room. Even Donald Trump would be silent, if only for a little moment. But the sort of deal puts so much into motion on all levels, on a political, on an economic level, on a social behavioral level, because the deal is so rich. There is so much value, and there is, if you compare this IoT equipment sales, then there is fairly little cost involved in comparison to the value, but only if there is a critical mass. If all in the room we do our IoT thing, but nobody else joins in, then we are an isolated group of nerds or pioneers, but only if everybody joins in and the network becomes a mesh network, then you have the value generation. Otherwise, these figures are just smoke and mirror. Now, what has changed and what are the risks? In order to give you an idea about the risks, it's a very good idea to just compare traditional industry, the black ones, with new industry, data industry, the green ones. Now, you have 2006, 11, and 16 as comparisons, and this comparison is just measured by market capitalization, and that means who is the most valuable company in the world. And today it's Apple, or it may already be Alphabet, and Microsoft is a number 3, Amazon a number 4, Facebook a number 5, and that may already have changed since I copied it into this presentation. But what you see is down from 2006, you just had a Microsoft, and all the companies that had these physical goods business, that were doing mechanical engineering, machinery, that were in production, that people who had their hands dirty by the end of the day, they have been reduced to a second tier of companies that are far outstripped in terms of market cap by the data industry. To put it in words, they have tried and are successfully trying to eat the lunch of the traditional ones. Now, what does that mean for automotive? And automotive, just being an example, the key fear of the producers of cars, is that they will just be reduced to bending the metals and being the suppliers to the data industry, to Google, to Amazon, to Facebook, and this is the last they would want. And on a tier 2, it is Continental, it is Magna. So there are many of these organizations that simply identify as a key risk. If they lose out in this IoT data economy, they are going to be lost, and the whole sales process turns against them. Today they produce a car, they sell it, and of course they just finish it only once you have signed the deal with your car dealer. In the future, if Google or Amazon are strong enough, they could create buying communities, and these buying communities give them very rich information as to what they would like to buy, if only they could get it. And if Apple says, dear Mr. Daimler, I would like to buy 1 million cars, I want them in black, in green, and in white, and with these sorts of capabilities, then it's game over for Daimler and the likes, because they will, in that case, just be reduced to these metal benders. So that is a key risk, and that also explains why many people talk about Industry 4.0 or IoT business, but they are traditional companies are very afraid of exactly this scenario. So if you have a bill of material, and this bill of material has cost you enormous sweat equity, enormous money to produce it, then if you just send it into the open internet, it may be gone, and someone else may just go to school on you and produce it at a much cheaper cost. So this know-how that a traditional company has amassed over the years and decades, they will not let go into the open internet unless there is the guarantee that they control the data flow, they control who can access it, who will be able to do what with it, and by the end of the day, control their destiny. Loss of customer relationship, diffusion of know-how. Is the data ownership enforceable? So if you send some prescription into the open internet, then is it still yours, or whose is it? There is a lot of questions that follow on exactly this diffusion and let it go, move everything into the cloud. Yes, it sounds good, but if you talk to a normal company, not a data-driven company, the fear is still way higher than the commitment to say, yes, I do it tomorrow. But we do have laws. So if you send your bill of material into the open internet, it's still yours. That's right, but then if that bill of material ends up outside of your jurisdiction, then you can do nothing. Even if it ends up within your jurisdiction, and I've taken the European example, yes, we do have fairly strict data privacy, data security laws, but like always in legal, in regulation, regulation is coming late. So the regulation that should have been in place 5 years ago has only been put in place last year. And this is just normal. This will happen again and again because markets are simply moving faster. And the most prominent example is Uber. Uber is in conflict with European law on driving taxis. And still Uber said, I don't care. We will see what happens. And what has been created is a dilemma for the legislator to either say, no, we don't do it, we kill innovation, or to let things go and move into an unregulated space, which creates more problems than it may resolve. So that is the key issue of then a de facto standard. De facto standards simply emerge whether legislation wants them or not. But knowing this, then this even more means as an enterprise you cannot rely on regulation to fix your problem. You have to fix your individual data issues individually, and you have to find your individual answers and implement these answers technically. Now, what does it mean remaining in control of your data? If you look at this IoT communication, the fridge is talking to the car, and the car is talking to the LED, and so on. Many ideas flow around, but by the end of the day, if we take a step back, some 20 years back, then if you ask yourself the questions the question, why have we started telephony? All of us using telephony. There are a couple of reasons. You knew and we know we can have confidential discussions on the phone. That works, at least this is the assumption under which we have our telephone calls. If it wasn't confidential, if our phone calls were broadcasted, let's say just within the hotel, we wouldn't pick up the phone. So confidentiality is a key issue, and translated into technical terms, end-to-end security. Accessibility is a key issue, and accessibility means you have to have clear access rights as to who can participate and who cannot, or which authorization you must have, which authentication you must give before being able to have that sort of IoT call or not. And then it's a quality of service issue. If you pick up your phone 3 times and it doesn't really work, then so be it. You won't pick it up a 4th time. And this is very much the case with much of the IoT world of today. Many things work on PowerPoint, but they don't work in reality. You may remember this first craze, the RFID craze, some 10 years ago, where RFID was supposed to conquer the world. By that time, we had formed a company in the US, and the idea has not been to collect the signals and sensors, but to share that information, that processed information, with whoever should know and would be eligible to know about a certain fact. And then what was the outcome of this first wave? The outcome was ideas were great, but if you look into the RFID space today, then you see RFID in NFC, you see it, and it's not being discussed as RFID, it simply works. But many of the ideas in supply chain have not materialized. Why not? Because we were too optimistic. We had projects that required Zigbee to work on a ship. We had people who came to us and said, we want this to be transmitted to that device, and it was in retail industries, and you tried to somehow circumnavigate the limitations of the Faraday cage, but the Faraday cage finally won. And this time again, it will not be that all of the ideas will fly, but those ideas will certainly fly that have a simplicity built into it. So to make a long story short, the quality of service is critical. If you don't have SLAs across IoT networks, think about this car idea, about the connected car and so on. That's a long stretch. So cars will not be autonomous cars for quite some time to come for hundreds of reasons. But if these elements are in place, then these are the base elements for certain IoT networks to really grow, and grow in a network effect way. It needs network effects. Without network effects, there is only singular value creation, and we won't see the trillions. Now, how do you remain in control of your own data if you are a company? If you think about the many relationships you have, and you put these many relationships into singular, secure boxes in the internet, data spaces in the internet, then if you are the owner of such a data space, you can give access to your supply chain partners. You can give your bill of material to your supply chain partners into this secure space, because you send them this bill of material information today, and they can report back a KPI on certain implementations, and then you have a secure space in the internet that is responsive and allows all parties involved to draw their conclusions and to react KPI-wise. Now, you don't do it with one of your projects. These projects can be granular projects, can be tiny ones, and you may have zillions of these secure data spaces in the internet, but you are in control, you give access, you can revoke access. And this is what you see here on the slide. This is a straightforward idea that is just the extension of the Dropbox idea into proliferation of these boxes, but in individual data controls. And this is how, this is the only way how you can really be in a position as a company to control your data destiny. Local controls and global reach. This is about the dilemma. You want to control your data, you must control it, because otherwise somebody else is going to eat your lunch. At the same time, if you don't collaborate, you won't have any lunch at all. So bringing both ends together such that these ends meet requires the sort of governance that is on your end, this global governance that you can put into your data, and at the same time the accessibility by your supply chain partners. We experience it in all industries. Healthcare is the most prominent one. We today have projects where patients have these secure boxes with them on a device. They are in rehabilitation. They do their exercises. This device measures whether they do everything right. There is a feedback synchronization, box synchronization mechanism that gives this information back to the hospital, the surgery, and to the general practitioner who treats patients on a daily basis. But that is a mechanism that allows you to control that process flow, and if you are a patient, you will never agree to work with something like this if you are not 100% sure that your medical data is not publicly available on the open internet. And you can find this across all industry. This is the same mechanism. You need local data control, but you need a governance model, take automotive, that gives the different players the opportunity to have their own service set up and run. They want it on their own, in their own data center. They want it in their private cloud. Others may say, okay, we may want to work with a public cloud, that's okay with us, but many want a private cloud. And if you don't give this capability of federation to an industry, they will not work with you. We have lots of customers in England. British Telecom is a household name, but the big companies won't give BT their data to say, look after it. This is not the case. Some may, others may not. Some may rather give it to Vodafone. What you do have is a federation of instances, and as a company, you have to work across this federation of instances. You have a federated network with local controls, but with global reach. Then, to summarize the finding that we have and the experience in the market is the data-focused industrial enterprise is the one that is going to last. If you just rely on your capabilities, physical capabilities in mechanical engineering, in everything that Europeans have been excellent in, then yes, you can still survive, but the value proposition is being diluted because somebody else will be the data owner and farm the data away from you and have BI put on this data, and sooner or later this traditional company that was at the head of the supply chain is reduced to a supplier to the data farming company. That is certainly not the option that traditional companies want to choose. Excellence on data alone will not give Amazon, Google, Facebook, and all the others the opportunity to produce wonderful goods that people love. You need that manufacturing excellence, otherwise the product is crap. If you bring both together, then you have the data-focused industrial enterprise that increasingly transforms itself into the first-class data company that at the same time has its capabilities and will also in the future have and require its capabilities in excellent manufacturing. Both in combination will form the data-focused industrial enterprise. So with this, I would like to thank you and ask you for your questions at the same time.
Questions from the audience? We have got some minutes for questions left. Where do you see the IoT wave moving? Is it just a buzzword that doesn't have much behind it, or what are the people? What is behind it?
Yeah. So I think what is clear is the sensors and signals will put into houses, will be put into cars. If you compare a car of 2016 with a car of 10 years ago, it tells you each and everything. It beeps all the time. So there is sensor and signal technology, which is tremendous. If you have, if you are in medical work in healthcare, you have an explosion of signals and sensors. So they will be there, and there will be a lot of noise, to answer your question. A lot of noise will be totally worthless and will keep us up on all night because something is beeping, and then we want the chance to turn it off. So we want to be in control. The second answer is, I think, and I'm truly convinced that people will have to be in control today, in 20 and in 50 years, and not hand over too much of the smart work to some silly robot. Robots will come, but it will take more than a little while, and we have to make sure we remain in control. If things facilitate daily life, people will adopt it as long as they remain in control. And remaining in control is a key issue, and we will see lots of great businesses. We have a customer which was in mechanical engineering. He's the #1 globally in a very sophisticated medical device. It replaces parts of your bones if you have an accident, for example. Global #1. They are afraid that pre-surgery, a data farmer collects data. During surgery, another data farmer may collect data, and post-surgery, this rehabilitation phase, the data farmer collects information. And sooner or later, he may end up just being asked to produce this many of the medical, highly individualized goods that he's producing. So what they are doing is they extend the value chain for them, but also to the benefit of the patient, because what they sell today is we not only give you the artificial bone, I cannot tell you what it is, otherwise you will know the company, but this artificial piece of the human body that needs a substitution. We help you to walk 6 weeks earlier. Normally it takes 12, but you can walk 6 weeks earlier because we have a learning cycle. We know what you do wrong in your exercise. We tell you right away, and you will walk earlier. So that sort of value creation will finally be an essential part of the trillions that are being projected. Now, these are the models, and it will take longer, but you will have to start where it makes sense. And if you hear this my fridge orders yogurt, then we have heard it for certainly 15 years. This is certainly not a business case.
Okay, thank you. No further questions? Then, okay.
So you showed on the one slide that you told the people that they should sell their user data instead of giving them away. Do you think there would be like viable in future that people like really will sell their real data to companies?
Yes and no. I think it will become a niche that will exist. It will not go away. But what we have seen is the psychology of a human being is such that the human being doesn't take his time and sell a piece of data for $4.90 a month. If there is a nice package that your telecom company or your Facebook type of company gives you, you are willing to give your data away against this package. So what I believe, it will not be currency, it will rather be comfort, it will be the ease of using something and so on. So who has ever read the terms and conditions of your WhatsApp account or LinkedIn account or whatever? I haven't. You run through them and you look for the confirm button and then you send it off. So the deal, if the deal is right, you confirm, but you will probably not sell and collect in hard currency what your data is worth.
Isn't that then what we're doing now?
Can you wait for
Isn't that just what we do now then already? What's new?
We are doing it already. It's a prolongation and it's an extension to that. I think there is a new element coming into it. There is a privacy level, I believe, a cultural privacy level. Today, we don't believe that we give to Facebook, to Google, something which is beyond our cultural privacy level. We say, okay, if Google knows where I am, who cares? But if you think about giving away data which shows you had a car accident 2 years ago and you had one 7 years ago and another one 15 years ago, 15 years ago you had 2 drinks too many. Yeah, if you think about that sort of level of privacy, then that may be another category of data, but this is a category of data an insurance company would want. So there will be deals in the market that will try to buy you 3 accidents, including the one with the 2 drinks.